So this will be my self-critique on my Improptu speech. For my Improptu speech, we had to give 10 topics that we feel as though we're experts on, and then give a like it's called an Improptu speech on it. So the one that was selected for me was how psychedelics can help mental illness. I was kind of excited about this because this is a topic not only I feel I'm pretty knowledgeable relatively to the people in the class about, but also I'm very passionate about. I think I have a lot of good ideas, and people high in power have a lot of good ideas about it, so I was really excited to give this speech. So watching my video, my hand gestures were pretty good, I think. At points, they were a little awkward. I tend to kind of like hold my hands down at my waist sometimes, and that can kind of seem, I don't want to say not confident, but it kind of seems as though I'm a little bit nervous when I didn't feel nervous at all giving the speech, which I felt was really good because sometimes, I do get really nervous, as everyone does when giving public speeches. But so that was something I think I need to work on. My biggest issue is when I'm doing this kind of motion. I feel very good, but when I don't have a hand gesture to go along with what I'm saying, I don't really know where to put my hands or what to do. Normally when I'm talking to people, I just put them in my pocket. Obviously, putting your hands in your pocket during a public speech aren't the best way to go, but I don't think that's the biggest deal in the world. I think overall my hand gestures were pretty good and not necessarily distracting, but actually helped my speech, I would say. The one issue I was kind of frustrated about was there are a lot of myths about psychedelics that a lot of people have put out there to kind of scare people away from seeing them as drugs that can be potentially used to help people. But I said in my preview, which I was really happy about that I remembered to give a preview, that I was going to debunk these myths and explain why a lot of them are actually false and where they come from and how they kind of arrive to be this thing people believe in when they hear the term psychedelic. But the speech was timed, and I noticed I was getting low on time, so I didn't want to go overtime, so I decided just to scratch that and continue talking. So that was a bit frustrating, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's better that I stay under the time limit and forget to say something that was in my preview than say to my preview and go over the time limit. I don't know. In a real world scenario, I wouldn't probably be limited that much on time, so I could probably go for it. So once again, not the biggest deal in the world, but something definitely to work on in the future, just with organization and making sure I give a valid preview when giving a speech, because like Professor Prentice always says, a preview is really important. The other thing I noticed is organization is obviously extremely difficult when you're giving an impromptu speech. 10 topics, and mine were all pretty varied, so you can't really have all these ideas in your head and stay organized with them. And I was going to get off on tangents and explain how things relate to what I was saying and come back to the main idea, and then decided, that with the time constraint, I wouldn't be able to do it that well. So there were a couple times where it felt like I would give a really cool fact, but then it kind of didn't have too much. It obviously was about the topic, but I couldn't really tie it in back with the main idea I was driving home as well as I wanted to. But once again, not the biggest deal in the world. I think it was interesting, and I think the class enjoyed it. So if those facts are enjoyable to the class, then it's not, like I said, the biggest thing to worry about. But once again, definitely something to work on in the future, just making sure I stay in line with that main idea I was talking about. And then the end was my biggest thing. When you're giving a speech like that, you really want to drive a point home. And I tried to do this with saying that California is actually trying to legalize psilocybin for the use of mental illness, which I think is awesome. And I think, in my mind, that's like, hey, people are actually getting behind this, and people high in power are actually trying to make changes to make these things happen. But from a perspective of an audience member, after watching my speech, I noticed it seemed kind of like just another fact I threw in at the end, and not really a wow factor statement towards the end. And that's what you really wanted to give. I'm not really sure what else I could have given as a wow factor, you know what I mean? Just like thinking about it myself, I think that's the best way I could have gone. Or I could have tried to have like a really cool story about maybe someone who is suffering from depression, a psychedelic drug kind of helped them and cured them. But I don't know well enough. I don't have any stories in my mind that are clear enough and direct enough to do that. So I think at the end of the day, that was the best wow fact I could have given. But if I had a speech where I could kind of like plan it out ahead and have some time to figure out what I'm going to say, I would definitely need a better wow statement. So once again, something really good in my bank of things I need to work on in the future, and I'm glad I figured that out. And then all in all, I was pretty happy with how it went for an impromptu speech. I think I stayed pretty calm. One of the issues, and Professor has said this before, my mom always says this, I need to slow down a little bit when I'm thinking. When I'm speaking, excuse me, I think I just get really excited, and I have so many ideas in my head, and there's a time constraint, so I just want to get it out as fast as I can, and keep giving those facts. But slowing down definitely helps the audience kind of take in the information. Didn't have too many pauses, which pauses are great, as we talked about in one of the earlier videos on my homework. Just giving a pause, letting the audience kind of take in the information. Okay, they got it. Next point I'm going to make. But all in all, I thought it was a pretty good speech, and I was happy with how I did.